welcome to the show where we share the stories of the many who intersect with our healthcare system but are rarely heard from. My name is Kevin Poe, founder and editor of Kevin MD. Today in the show, we have Gina Ambrose. She is an emergency physician and she wrote the Kevin MD article, The Psychological Repercussions of Patient Complaints. Gina, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for having me on the podcast today.
We'll get into the article in a little bit, but first off, can you share your story and journey to where you are today?
Yeah, so I'm a board certified emergency medicine physician. I did residency training at Christiana Care in Newark, Delaware. I currently work for a private democratic group based out of Annapolis. We staff an 80-bed ED, and we see a little over 100,000 patients per year, including pediatrics. In addition to my clinical duties, I am also partway through my MBA program at the Eisenberg School of Management at UMass Amherst. And I've also served as a performance improvement facilitator at the hospital that I work at, and I'm also the patient advocacy representative for my group.
So we have a lot of physicians who are also pursuing their MBA degrees. So in your situation, what was your reason to pursue an MBA degree?
So my personal reason is that I see a lot of hospital administrators that are very far removed from clinical work, some that have never even practiced medicine or don't have medical degrees. And I find it very important to be able to relate to the people that you're working with. And so my goal in obtaining my MBA is to one day act as a liaison for the hospital and the clinical workers, and try not to forget where I came from, kind of thing.
So in the emergency department, can you give an example of an administrator with only an MBA degree without any clinical experience affecting physicians' daily life?
Yeah, well, I think that, even people that do have had clinical practice. So, once you get out of seeing patients, I think you forget what it's like, and especially moving up, the corporate ladder, if you're in a corporate staffing group or through the C-suite in the hospital. It's not necessarily that you don't know what happens, but you don't remember what it feels like to have it happen to you. Mm-hmm. And I think that being able to relate to what's going on in real time. So like right now with all the nursing shortages, people still want us to meet our metrics, right? And metrics are important and we need to have them for various reasons. But when you kind of fall out of the realization that there is this massive nursing shortage, we're understaffed, people are stressed out, they're burnout. And of course, it's going to affect our metric times. And so, hearing that, there aren't great solutions to that problem and we're still held to those same standards, it feels very disheartening.
All right, let's transition now into the Kevin MD article that you wrote. It's titled, The Psychological Repercussions of Patient Complaints. Now, for those who didn't get a chance to read your article, can you just walk my audience through it and share the story of why you decided to write it?
Yeah, so it really started by kind of listening to friends and colleagues express their frustration with the way that the hospital or the group that they worked for would handle complaints. Before I got involved in patient advocacy, I think I made a lot of assumptions. I assumed that people in the community knew the limitations of the emergency department. I assumed that patients would only make complaints about something that was serious or important. I assumed that the hospital administration would, most of the time back up their physicians on matters of patient care. And so when I started out as a patient advocate representative, I found myself being really defensive for my colleagues and for myself. And it was difficult to hear patients say that their care was bad because from where I was sitting, their care was completely appropriate. Mm-hmm. And so, talking to patients and reading these cases kind of led me to define 3 different types of patient encounters. So there's the good encounter where everyone's happy and, there aren't any issues. There's the bad encounter where sometimes you miss a diagnosis or there's a bad outcome. And then there's this in-between encounter where the care is completely appropriate, but for whatever reason, whether it's the perception of their care or an unmet expectation, the patient complains about what happened and feels that their care was inadequate, when in reality, from a medical standpoint, it does in fact seem that everything, went the way that it should have. And so there's this big chasm between patient perception of medicine and what happens in reality, especially in the emergency department. I think people from the community come into the emergency department thinking they have unlimited resources, that their 10 years of belly pain is finally going to get diagnosed, and that it's this magical place where everything happens. And we have a lot of constraints and limitations in the emergency department. And so until this mismatch of perception, expectation, and reality is met, we're always going to have people, feeling as though their care was not adequate. And so the question is, how do you relay this to the provider? How do you tell a provider that, this person said that your care was bad, and you look at the chart and you're like, well, everything went the way it was supposed to, and what are they complaining about? And you really have to get into, the grievances being a misunderstanding and not malpractice. And so talking to the patient in one way and talking to the provider in another way really does have a very, very big effect on both people.
Now, can you give us an example? It could be a hypothetical example of a typical patient complaint where the medical care was actually adequate, but the patient had a complaint for one reason or another.
Oh yeah, I can give you more than one, but one example that comes to mind was we had a patient that cut her lip, she fell, and she asked for a plastic surgeon. And we don't have plastic surgeons that will come in for that type of thing. If you need to go to the OR because you need a washout or something like that, but not for something minor. And so she was very upset that the plastic surgeon wasn't called in to fix her lip, and then filed a complaint against the provider and wanted the hospital to pay for her revision surgery, for her scar revision surgery. And so that was something that we had to, again, redefine the expectation and standard of care in the emergency department. And sometimes people get that and they're okay with it, and sometimes they don't.
Take us through a pathway of a patient complaint, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions surrounding this issue, both from the patient side, of course, and the clinician side. So once a patient makes a complaint, walk us through the path that complaint takes, and how does it reach administration, and what are some potential repercussions that complaint has on the physician?
Great. So that's a really good question. So depending on where you work, usually every hospital, as a provision for Medicare, Medicaid through CMS, you need to have some form of patient advocacy group or ways for patients to file complaints. So the hospital where I work at, we're really, really great about it. We have people that can come into the floor, the emergency department, wherever, and deal with complaints like in real time. So if I have a patient encounter that I know is not going well, and I can tell, I get the feeling that they're probably going to want to say something to someone later, I will say, I can call our patient advocacy group and they can come down and talk to you. And so if we can get it resolved in real time, that's obviously the best outcome and the fastest way to deal with it. But a lot of times what happens is one of two things will happen. Either we'll get a complaint through a survey, and based on that information, whether it's more of an FYI or this doctor or provider really needs to know that this was a bad outcome, and so you can get it through a survey. And then you can also have patients that either call or send an email to the patient advocacy department, and then it goes through those folks, and then it'll get directed to the department based on where the complaint was formed.
Now, with your experience with patient advocacy, what would you say is the biggest misconception physicians have about patient complaints? From what I'm hearing, I think there's a little bit of a mismatch of expectations. Now, would be the most common mismatch of expectations? What category would you classify that as?
It's usually, I want to like imaging. We have a lot of complaints that patients wanted imaging, whether it's an X-ray or an MRI, or they thought they should have had this. And we do get a lot of patients that come in and say that either their doctors told them that they were going to get this test or this study, or that they were going to be admitted. And so sometimes, our medical community doesn't set us up for success, because, they send someone in having not seen the patient or not really knowing what's going on, and kind of telling them like, oh, these things are going to happen. But then when you get into it, they don't need half of the stuff that they were told they were going to need. So honestly, I would think that imaging is the big one. People always want MRIs. I last week literally had someone say that they wanted an MRI of their entire body just because they wanted to get checked out. And so having to like explain, what an MRI is and why you order imaging and, limitations of insurance and, all this stuff. But I would say imaging is a pretty big one.
In the emergency department, especially, do you feel a lot of clinicians feel pressure, whether it's an economic pressure or pressure from administration to perhaps acquiesce to patient requests with satisfaction surveys or patient complaints in the back of their mind?
I think it's very individualized. So I'm kind of, starting into the middle of my career. And so I work with people that have been doing this for like 20, 25 years, and they don't feel any pressure. They know the way they work things up. They know what they order. They know, they're set in their ways kind of. And then there's the people that have just graduated from residency that overorder everything because that's what you do when you're first out of medicine in the emergency department. You are terrified of missing something. And so it's completely understandable to overorder. And so then there's like my age group where you're kind of out of the ordering everything, but you're still not completely there. And I personally do find myself ordering tests for people because for me personally, that's what they're there for. So if someone comes in and they're like, I am terrified I have a brain tumor, I can, tell them all I want about all the reasons why they probably don't have a brain tumor. But that person's going to go home and they're not going to sleep, and they're going to come back the next day. And until they get that MRI, they're going to figure it out. They're going to not figure out, they're going to want to know, what their MRI shows. And so I don't feel an economic pressure, although I do think with the way that reimbursement's going, that when we move to all this value-based care, that as soon as the hospital stops being reimbursed for some of these, quote unquote, unnecessary studies, that there is going to be a push to probably order less.
We're talking to Gina Ambrose. She's an emergency physician, and she wrote to Kevin M. the article, The Psychological Repercussions of Patient Complaints. Gina, from, again, your work with patient advocacy, what are some things that physicians can learn from the patient feedback process?
So kind of looking at it from the role of the administration and the role of the physician. So administrators want patient retention, they want patient satisfaction, and indirectly, physicians want that too. You want to be proud of the place that you work at. You want your hospital, your private practice to have a good reputation. And so in order to do that, you have to sometimes acquiesce to what what patients feel they're missing, whether it's valid or not valid. And I think that when we're presented with complaints, that we really have to separate ourself and our practice from the complaint itself, because most of the time it is not you, it is not your practice, it is not your expertise or your knowledge that is the problem. The problem is that the patient thought that something was going to happen that didn't happen, or that they wanted something to happen. And it has very little to do with you. But I mean, physicians, we own our patients and we own our practice, and we take it to heart so much. And being able to kind of relieve yourself of that pressure really makes you more empathetic to the patient, I think, and it makes you a better doctor.
If you could give one piece of actionable advice that physicians can use to minimize their patient complaint rate, what would that one piece of advice be?
Ask the patient what their goals of the encounter are. It's a simple statement. And I ask all my patients, what is your goal for coming to the emergency department today? And very concretely, they can state, well, I have belly pain. I want to find out what's wrong with me, or I've had a headache and I think I'm having a stroke, or, it succinctly allows you to focus in on what the real problem is. And if you're having an encounter that you don't think is going well, or you can tell that there's some animosity, I think that taking a moment to say, I can see that there's tension here and that something isn't going the way that you would like it to. What is it that I can do to help make your experience better?
And my final question, what's your take-home message that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience?
I think that working as a physician nowadays can sometimes be very lonely. I think we feel very unsupported, and we don't have the autonomy that we used to, and it can be really tough. And so when you're faced and presented with a patient complaint, really being able to, to look at it objectively and to say, was my medical practice good? And if the answer to that is yes, then, empathize with the patient. What is it that they didn't get, and how can I prevent this from happening again in the future? And if there was something wrong with your practice, then that's good too. What can you learn from it? What feedback can you take to change your practice to make it better for the next time?
Gina, thank you so much for sharing your time and insight. And thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you.